Just wait for the. So I'll just press the button, say we got it. The recording is in progress. So again, as I said, welcome everybody, and thank you for Paulina for setting the scene there and dealing with the questions as they come in. So colleagues, my name's Alan Parkinson, and I'm based here in UCL School of Management, and amongst a number of things I do, I'm responsible for the development of this program, which is a new program which is scheduled to launch at the start of academic year 2025-26, which normally in university terms in the UK, we would say is round about the end of September, when we have an induction, and then we start on the roll forward with the program. I'm also joined here, if I turn the camera there, I think Lindsay, I think colleagues can see you.
So you can probably see two versions of us. So we're all in the same room in One Canvas Square in our offices in Canary Wharf. So I'm Lindsay Chu. I'm a professor in financial education, and I'm part of the program team developing the amazing modules that hopefully we'll be taking.
And I think we've got another colleague there as well.
Hi, I'm Judith, and I'm the program administrator, so I can answer and help with any administrative related questions.
Thanks very much, Judith. So again, here we are. We're just going to give you that information and then let you ask any questions that you want. What we've actually done, as we always do in preparing presentations, is we've tried to anticipate what some of the questions are that colleagues who are interested in the program might ask. So hopefully some of those questions you've got will be covering automatically, which might leave a little bit more time for perhaps the more focused, in-depth, insightful questions that you would wish to ask. So if we then, Lindsay, I think we're doing it from your laptop, aren't we, on this one? So what we're going to do here is, you see the first slide, finding out about NOMSAF. Put my teeth back in, OMSAF, and I guess one of the things that you might be interested in is, well, you know, is what is OMSAF and why would we bother to do it? And then, of course, how does it all happen? How does this thing all fit together, and what are the logistics, and how does it work? And then surrounding that, there'll be other stuff as well, as we've called it. So we didn't want to use fancy terms, the what, the why, the how, and the other stuff which goes with it. So if we do a very first quick look at OMSAF, well, first of all, let me stress it is an online program. We'll say more about that in a moment, because you know, online is interesting as a term, and we're using it in a particular way, in more than one way in this program. And the whole idea is to help students. Students may be straight out of university, they could be working managers, but people who want to get a grip on financial expertise, so that if you're currently working, you can apply it in your organization and develop your career. We may have students coming straight from university who are looking to get that portfolio of skills, including accounting and finance, to help with future employment and career progression and trajectory. Online, well, one of the things is that means that you can you have a flexibility to study from anywhere, and it's let me stress, because we have had one or two emails from colleagues saying, does it mean that I have to come to London, and do I have to get a visa? And the answer is no, it's online, so it's not in London, so there's no visa requirements as such, and that's something that we need to stress, because it's interesting. Only a handful of emails, but people saying, oh, right, so I've got to get a visa to come to London. The answer is no, it's online. You could be in the UK studying and doing it online. You could be in Singapore, you could be in Frankfurt, you could be in Costa Rica, you could be in Australia. I've made a mistake there, because once you start to mention 3 or 4 countries, I guess we have to mention every other country in the world, but I'll just say from all the other countries as well. So what do we mean by online? I said that we're looking at that in more than one way. There's the conventional online stuff that people may be familiar with, what we refer to as asynchronous study materials. Excuse me. And by asynchronous, that is online. So things like videos, video lectures, video answers to questions, video case studies, readings from textbooks, readings from articles, reinforcement quizzes, things that actually happen all online, one after the other. But then also, and I think this is what makes this particular program stand out from some other online programs, particularly master's programs, is that, as you'll see later on, every module has a 10-week teaching, a 10-week set of teaching sessions. And what we're going to do on a week-by-week basis, there'll also be synchronous, that means live, online seminars. And what will be happening will be that just as you would if you were in an in-person university, where you go to class and you get to grips with some case scenarios, you're doing problem sets, you're just trying to learn more, explore, gain insights, discuss with the person who's facilitating, the module leader, other facilitators there may be, and also with your student colleagues to do some exercises together. And I think that that's a unique feature of this particular program. Yeah, of course, there's the online stuff, the videos, the readings, the reinforcement quizzes, but this weekly 90-minute session, which people will be expected to attend, and we'll say more about that later. Across any one term, we're also going to have, certainly at program level, possibly on individual modules, but certainly at program level, we'll be having some live webinars with guest speakers. One of the things about UCL is that next year is the bicentennial, so nearly 200 years. We've got a lot of alumni. I don't think we'll be calling upon the alumni from the first intake back in 1828, but we have current alumni who've already lined up to say, yeah, you know, Alan, Lindsay, you want somebody to come and talk about this, talk about that, talk about anything else, we're happy to come along and give our experience and share our thoughts with the students on the program. Other events and activities, one of the things that we're keen on is to avoid students falling into the trap of what's sometimes referred to as the loneliness of the long distance learner. Well, first of all, with the online seminars each week, I think that minimizes that, because you see your professors, you see your lecturers, you see other students. But two other things that we want to do is each week we'll pick the times once we've got launched, but we'll have I don't know, what should we call it? A coffee shop, an OMSAF cafe, where people can drop in. Maybe we'll be there for an hour, and if people want to drop in, and if they want to ask some questions about the program, that's absolutely fine. If they want to ask something about where are you going on your holiday, talking to other people, that's absolutely fine as well. If they want to talk about things that are happening in work or something they've seen in the business news. So the sort of thing that might well happen if you were at an in-person university, where you bump into other people, you go and have a cup of tea, you go and have a cup of coffee, and you have a chat about a whole range of things. And I think apart from being useful in its own right, I think that it helps people to bond with the program and with UCL School of Management, because you will be a UCL School of Management student. Something else that we have aspirations for, and remember, this is a new program, so it may actually take a little bit of time for the traction to start to gain momentum, which invariably happens with all new programs. But I mean, we're based here in London in giving this presentation. Let's just start here in London. Let's say that in the very first presentation, we had a concentration of students in London. What we would do is we would invite them in for, let's call it, should we call it an immersion weekend? Not credit bearing, so if people aren't able to come, that doesn't matter. We would make it live online as well, where activities can be done. We'll have guest speakers, maybe we'll use a simulation now and again, but something which brings people together and also adds, if you like, to the financial and business landscape against which this program is set. I mentioned London. Let's jump ahead a little bit. Let's pick somewhere where both Lindsay and I are going in April for other reasons to do with UCL. Singapore. Let's say we had a concentration of students in Southeast Asia, and then we could say to people, you know, if you want to come to Singapore, you know, we'll give you hotel addresses and all the rest of it. We're not going to pay for that. We'll pay for the location that we'll be having the immersion weekend in. And if somebody can't join, we'll make it available online. But because it's not credit bearing, in a sense, you don't have to think, oh, I'm going to fail the program because I'm not there. It's part of that. Let's just make it as close as we possibly can despite it being online, let's make it as close as we possibly can to that experience of being together at a university. So that I think I've covered a number of things there. And the benefits, I guess, if you've read some stuff about it on our website, you will know this. But for the record, let's say it. Well, why would anybody want to do it? Well, first of all, gaining that financial expertise that I referred to earlier on. And I know some people, I'm an accountant, so I wouldn't agree with this descriptor. Some people say, oh, accounting and finance is the necessary evil. I have to get to grips with it. Well, I think you do have to get to grips with it, but I wouldn't look at it as the necessary evil. I just say, hey, this is something which if I add to my portfolio of skills, abilities, knowledge, understanding, insights, it's just going to A, stand me in good stead as a person, and B, is going to help with my professional development as I move forward in my career. Also some analytical skills, not just in the quant sense, but in research. At the end of the program, as you'll see later on, there's a strategic financial project where you'll actually be doing, in inverted commas, some proper research, but also for the various projects and essays that you might be doing. It's not just us saying, oh, here's a question, do it. It's often you going off and finding out about things, be it through reading articles, journals, trying to synthesize, evaluate, all those things that you would expect to be doing at master's level. And another thing at master's level, another attribute that we want to develop is critical thinking, to get all the data, whether it's quantitative data and or qualitative data for a particular project you might be doing, a particular piece of coursework, and to be able to not just regurgitate it, but to say, okay, I've taken all this in the context of perhaps a scenario that you've given me. What does it mean? How can I make sense of it? How can I contribute perhaps towards the decision that the organization, the scenario wants to make? So that's what we'd put forward as the benefits. I think there are other benefits as well, but they're the key benefits that we would have there. Here's a picture of the learning package. And again, I've already referred to some of them, but let me reiterate those and add to others. So there's going to be the weekly live seminars that I referred to. I referred to readings, I referred to quizzes. We're also going to be having a little bit of research that I referred to, but also there'll be forums. There'll be interactive forums where you'll be able to share things with students. Your tutors will put in some prompt questions to get people to contribute. And you don't have to do that just in a live seminar. Of course, you could be on a lunch break. You could be at home. You could be having a sleepless night. And you think, oh, I'll just log on and throw something into the forum. So again, giving that opportunity of flexibility for people. A lot of the learning will be problem-based learning as well. We're also going to give you the opportunity to have some self-reflection. And I think A, at master's level, but B, in the context of personal development and career development, it's not just learning and regurgitating, it's just stopping and thinking and reflecting upon things, and then sharing your reflections, A, with yourself. Sometimes it's good to, in a sense, to talk to yourself in a reflective mode, but also to share those reflections with other students as well. So problem-based learning, action-based learning, and reflection. So we've got a whole variety of things in that learning package. And then study modes. Right, what we're doing is we're offering 2 study modes. One is a full-time mode, which is a full academic year of 12 months. And I did mention that the program is being launched at the end of September this year. And we'll give you a sample timetable. We'd have to finalize the timetable, but we think we've got it just about right at the moment. It would go across the full 12 months. And at the end of the 12 months in September, you would submit your strategic financial project. My colleague Lindsay, who will be running that, will say a little bit more about that shortly. But of course, if you're working, one of the things that you would be doing is not trying to do it full time. Let me reassure you, if you are working in a full-time job and you think you can sign up for the full-time version, all I can say is, please don't. It's crazy. It really is crazy. You just wouldn't be able to do the full-time study and have a full-time job. If you've got a full-time job, then do the part-time. One of the major differences is that for the full-time, you're doing 4 modules a term. You'll see that in a moment in the proposed timetable. And part-time, you're doing 2 modules a term. The part-time is across 2 academic years. Year one, you start at the end of September and you go through to the end of July. So the good news is, in a sense, there's no formal work in August and September. If you want to do some stuff, that's fine. We can help you with that. But year two would be that full 12 months again, with your project coming in at the end of the year. The structure, well, in the UK, a master's degree is designated as being as what they refer to as 180 credits worth of work. In other words, achievement to gain the master's award. And there are going to be 10 compulsory modules, each of 15 credits worth. And if my maths is good, I won't be creative with the numbers as an accountant. 10 modules times 15 credits, well, that gives us 150 credits. There's 180 for the program as a whole. So the one compulsory module of 30 credits, that's the strategic financial project, where you do a little bit of research and then you go off and apply that research to a particular project. And now here it is, the modules. What would you be studying in these compulsory modules? Well, a whole range of things across that accounting and finance spectrum. First of all, accounting for business decisions. I guess that would make sense to have some core understanding of what accounting is, but not in the sense of turning you into bookkeepers, but to say, let's look at how an organization accounts for what goes on and how it produces financial information which can be used to help managers in those in the organization, in the business, in the government, in the charity, whatever background it is, to actually make business decisions. We've also then got the financial reporting landscape, and that in itself, I think, is interesting as a module to include. We'll look at a little bit more depth about what it is that a business has to put in its annual report. And I think one of the things some of you might be familiar with is, yeah, we'd put financial statements in the annual report. Of course we would. But I'm just thinking about one I looked at last week with some master's students. The annual report, I won't name the company, but the annual report went on, I think it was for 169 pages. The core financial statements were 4 pages. There were about 30 pages of notes. So let's call that 34, 35 pages. Yet it was 169 pages in the annual report. So the financial reporting landscape is not just about the financial statements and what makes up the financial statements. It's about what's been looking back, what's been happening, looking ahead, where do we see ourselves going, looking at some of the other reports that we now need to do, corporate governance, so that we now broaden that into ESG, environmental and social and governance reporting. The auditors will be coming in, providing assurance to a whole range of stakeholders. In a commercial business, of course, the shareholders, but other stakeholders as well. So looking at what the landscape against which an organization is set. And we've called it financial reporting, but actually these days it's financial reporting with a big plus sign after it. Applied managerial finance, that would make sense, particularly if you've got aspirations for career progression, to move from the core accounting to having an understanding of, let's not call it corporate finance, but more financial management understanding. One thing which, again, we thought long and hard about putting this in, but we went off and we spoke to managers in a whole range of organizations. Yeah, behavioral finance. If you like, what should we call it? The psychology of decision making. Why is it that people make the financial decisions they make? And sometimes you look at it and you say, wow, it's really weird. If it was me, I wouldn't have made that decision. And there's a whole set of biases and cognitive perceptions that people have, pressures that they receive from elsewhere. So we'll look at the decision-making process, the psychology of that decision-making process in behavioral finance. We advanced the accounting by looking at, from one angle, should we call it advanced financial ratio analysis in the financial statements to section analysis, but also going further, looking at, for example, has there been a bit of window dressing in these financial statements? Have perhaps the people who prepared them, have they been a bit creative? Is there a bit of creative accounting going on? And dare I say, I wonder, could we get some insights into how to be a forensic detective and possibly just check to see if anybody's verging towards fraudulent misrepresentation? And of course, over the years, there have been all sorts of accounting scandals where fraudulent misrepresentation has taken place. Strategic management accounting, as managers, understanding of management accounting is important, but look at the title of this program, Strategic Accounting and Finance. It would make sense to say, oh, we're not just doing the numbers, but setting the management accounting principles and the decisions which emerge from the application of those principles in the context of, well, where's the organization going? What are we doing? What are the influences which are getting in the way or helping us? And also organizational control, how we set up to get the information to help managers. Something more quantitative, analytics and financial decision making. Don't worry, you don't need to be an Einstein genius. I can barely add up 1 and 1, and the answer is 3. We know that. But the analytics of just being able to look at a set of data and say, can I interrogate it from particular angles to help me make better decisions? All of us, whether it's a commercial business, whether it's a local government, whether it's a country government, whether it's a charity, whether it's an NGO, whether it's a hospital, whatever it might be, I think in one way or another, we're all now impacted by global financial markets. Money can move around the world at the press of a button. You've got interest rates, which we're impacting upon economies in different ways. So looking at the way in which those global financial markets work, but the impact that they can have on a whole range of organizations. And then, what about if we've got some money? What are we going to do with it? Should we try and have some sort of investment portfolio? So how do we set about constructing an investment portfolio? The answer is with great difficulty, because usually there's a lot of choices and there are a lot of challenges. So we give you insights into how you might construct from the outset an investment portfolio, but then on an ongoing basis, how do you manage that investment portfolio? And then the final compulsory 15 credit module, I guess in a way this aligns with the behavioral finance, influence, negotiations and persuasion. It could be as simple as you've got a great idea at work and you want to go and sell it to your colleagues. So you've got to go and make the business case. So how would you present that business case in a particular context? What about if your organization is trying to do a deal with an external supplier, and you want to pay X amount of pounds, dollars, RMB, euros, whatever the currency might be, but the supplier wants a different price and maybe there are different terms and conditions. How do you set about actually arriving at a situation which is satisfactory to the stakeholders? So I think you can see both internally and externally, influence, negotiations and persuasion is probably a good thing to look at. And Lindsay, if I could just ask you to say 1 or 2 words about the strategic financial project, as you are our expert on strategic financial projects.
Thanks, Alan. So this project is sort of the capstone of the program. It's the culmination of what you will have gathered in terms of knowledge base, but also skill sets, analytical, whether they be, more in the qualitative areas or quantitative. And there's a bit of scope for choice. So what we quite like to be able to let you leave with is very tangible output. So that could mean that the project could be based on something that's happening at work, if you're currently employed. If you have more academic pursuits or passions, then perhaps more of a traditional research dissertation type of project could also be pursued. So there's a little bit of, if you like, choice that you can have in terms of the actual specifics and the focus of your strategic financial project. But the idea is very much to build upon your knowledge base that you have gathered through the compulsory modules, seeing the real world application, whether it be in more theoretical form or indeed for an actual organization, and showcase that through this final strategic project. And this type of project is quite, I wouldn't say common, but it's a very good way to truly allow students to have a bit of freedom, have a little bit of creativity, innovative thoughts, and see how they can apply the theoretical side of things into a more practical, more pragmatic scenario. So if your employer may be sponsoring you for a bit of this professional development by going on the master's course like this, wouldn't it be really nice to actually produce something that you could turn around and say, this is actually something that I have scoped out for our organization, and this is how we can create even more value. And here are the justifications, the research that I've done to see how we can actually implement it and make it happen for us. So that's one sort of avenue that we could go down, or that you could go down, to really showcase what you've been learning on the program with us.
Okay, fine. Thanks for that, Lindsay. And what we were, Lindsay mentioned the word research, and what we actually do is at the start of the strategic financial project, we give you not full academic research methodology as if you're doing a PhD, but enough about research in business, research in accounting and finance, some methods. So if somebody said, go out and find out about, well, how do we do that? Well, there are tried and trusted and long established principles of research methodology, which real life businesses use when they go off and try and find out about things to inform themselves about projects that they may be, initiatives that they may be thinking of doing. So we'll help you with that. And just trying to cover everything so we can take your questions. Oh, assessment. Assessment, the dreaded evil of assessment. Yes, there is assessment. And don't worry too much. If you studied, guess what? People pass the assessments. People who engage with the materials, whether it's on this program or any other program, invariably pass the assessments. So there's a whole range of assessments on our modules that we have. So there's some individual coursework that we set. There's video presentations, sometimes group video presentations, sometimes individual video presentations. We have some online problem sets. I won't say an online quiz. I think that understates what it is, but online problem sets which give you an opportunity to get to grips with things that you've been looking at in the material. Group coursework as well. One of the things we know that happens at work is there's a lot of group work that goes on. People come together in groups. So getting those dynamics right, making it work. And then also projects. But what's also really interesting is that in our online seminars that we have, and I think Lindsay, I think it's put the arrow on there, the cursor on there. Has it got, it's disappeared again? Class interaction. Sometimes some of you may have come across it in another environment referred to as class participation. But this is where, and it can happen in a variety of ways. It can be if there's a discussion going on that actually everybody makes a contribution towards it. So certainly the one thing I'd say is, you know, if you're coming on this program, you're joining the online seminars, I guess for some colleagues, none of the ones who are present on this call today, of course, there is a temptation, oh, I'll join, I'll keep my camera off, I'll keep my volume on mute. No, that's not the case. You're in there, you're participating. We'll put you sometimes into breakout rooms with discussions, and we'll give you a reward for those discussions. Sometimes we might say 2 or 3 of you in advance prepare something, or maybe an individual prepare something, bring it along to class, show us your results. That's another form of class interaction. And we've even had things where on occasions in other programs where we look at something in an online seminar, then we say to somebody, to student colleagues after the event, give us that succinct summary. You know, what was discussed and what are you taking away from it as the key elements of the focus of that seminar? The pass mark at master's level in a UK master's degree is 50% on each module and 50% as an overall weighting throughout the whole program. But of course, you're all going to get more than 50% if you join. 50 to 59.99 is a pass level. If you get 60%, you start to get into the merit classification. And if you get 70% plus, that's a distinction. And one of the things that I would stress is, because on international programs, remember UCL brands itself as London's global university, you know, both in other online programs we have and in our face-to-face in-person programs, we have students from all over the world. And of course, they come from different educational systems. And, you know, there are some where if everybody sort of gets above 80%, and if you get 79%, oh, it's the end of the universe, that like people are going to shout at me for not doing well. No, in the UK system, I mean, if you've got 75% in the module or overall on the program, hey, you've done really well. So I think just to set the expectations there. And again, we won't look at the full detail of this, but just to show you that we have got a timetable mapped out. And in term 1 on the full time, you can see there are 4 modules. In term 2, there are 4 modules. And in term 3, which is April to the end of June, there are 2 taught modules. You can see there the investment portfolio ones and influence, negotiation and persuasion. And you do the first part of the strategic financial project, which is where we look at this accounting and finance research, business research, to help you gain a set of methods and approaches to actually, I've got to go and find out about stuff. I've got to be able to analyze it and evaluate it. How do I do that? And then you spend the rest of the summer doing the actual project. If you're on the part-time mode, with the part-time mode, in term 1 in year 1, there are 2 modules. In term 2 in year 1, there are 2 modules. And in term 3 in year 1, there are another 2 modules. And then we very generously let you have July to September off, but there'll be other activities still ongoing, like webinars and other events. And in part-time in year 2, again, 2 modules in the first term, 2 modules in the second term. And then in term 3, you start that research methods that we spoke about, and then that feeds into the strategic financial project. So hopefully that's giving you an overview of things, and just some other stuff before we take questions. Why UCL? Why the School of Management study online? Well, I think I've already given you some insights to studying online. I think particularly that flexibility that you have. UCL, I don't know. I've been working here at UCL for 15 years now, and you know what? I get up in the morning and I don't think, oh, I don't want to go in. Yeah, I want to go in. It's a good place. It's yeah, I won't go as far to say a hotbed, or maybe I will. It's a hotbed of people actually thinking and talking and being creative and having a passion for education, and with our research track staff colleagues, a passion for research as well. UCL, just so you know, the bicentennial, which I referred to earlier on, next year 200 years. It's had a reputation ever since then of being disruptive. With UCL back in 1826, here in England, if you wanted to go to university, first of all, you had to be male. Females didn't come onto the radar screen at all. Also, you had to be a practicing member of the Anglican Church of England. So if you were from another religious denomination, or oh gosh, a non-believer, hey, you go to university was just out of the question. But a group of philanthropists and philosophers all got together, including somebody called Jeremy Bentham, who we revere in UCL to this day, got together and said, this is crazy. You got to give opportunities to people. So UCL was founded so that you didn't have to be an Anglican practicing Anglican member of the Church of England. You could be from any background. I think it was forgive me, was it 1878? Became the first institution to admit females as well, which I think was a major step. I think we've had 30 Nobel laureates. I haven't made it and never will, but the huge pioneering research. School of Management, we started in the 1990s as a very small Centre for Management Studies, morphed into a Department of Management Science and Innovation, and then in 2015 became a fully fledged School of Management. Our research started to take off, and in the past 2 research excellence frameworks which the government undertakes to look at the quality of research, the impact of research, depending on how you measure the decimal points. First time round we did it, we either came joint first or just second, and the last one we became second as well. Teaching staff, we've got education track staff who I think I can say this hand on heart, passionate educators, just really sensible, really enthusiastic, but really good at what they do, both in the teaching and the types of assessment they give you. And we have research staff who get involved as well. And in the main, our research staff are not just researchers, our research staff are really good educators as well. We've also got some staff on this program who, hey, they've won awards. They've won teaching awards both within the School of Management and within the wider UCL. I think Lindsay, go on, Lindsay, I'll give you the opportunity to get embarrassed. How many awards have you won, Lindsay?
3.
Yeah, she's got a hat trick of awards, you know, so we'd sign her up to play striker for a football team, or soccer, as the Americans say. Other colleagues have done the same, and we've had external awards as well. Ideal student profile, because it's full-time or part-time, let's look at the part-time. If you're somebody who's already in work and you want to develop both personally your own horizons, expand them, but also your professional development for career aspirations, this is for you. We don't care whether you're from a marketing background, a general management background, whether you're an IT specialist. The commonality is everybody, as they start to develop and go up that career ladder, needs to have a grip on the essence of accounting and finance. If you happen to be somebody who wants to come on the full-time program, again, we're happy to help you find a direction in which you want to go. Accounting and finance will certainly be, I think, adding a significant step up the ladder. I said about helping you in career directions. If you're doing the full-time program, our career services, I would put my hand on my heart and say our career services in the School of Management, second to none, constantly praised by students. If you're already working, we can help you there as well. We do that with some of the students we have who are part-time students. We can give advice about career changes, about how to develop your career. We have an excellent career services team. And at this point, you've been sitting there very patiently, but you know about the application process and all that stuff that goes on.
You can find all information and the link to complete the application. And we aim to get back to everyone in between 4 to 8 weeks with a decision or further queries if there is anything. And I believe later we're going to be sharing an email address, and you can email on that address that would come into me with any question regarding application or to be honest, anything about the program if you want to know something before you complete the application, and I will get back to you.
And there may well be questions coming in about that in this presentation as well, Judith. And then the other thing, I said it before, if you join this program, the fact that you're not here in London in person doesn't matter. You will be a full School of Management student, a full UCL student. If you happen to be in London, whether you live in the UK or you're traveling from another location, you can use our facilities. We're based here. School of Management is based in 1 Canada Square in Canary Wharf in the financial district of London. So you'd be welcome to come here. Probably a good idea to let us know you're coming so we can make sure that everything is okay for you. But even over at Bloomsbury, where the original UCL was founded, and there's a huge campus over there, more than welcome there as well to use the facilities. And it may well be that maybe you're working and you're in London for work and you think, oh, I want to do an assignment. How am I going to do it? I don't want to sit in my hotel room. We'll find space for you in our premises, in our locations, for you to join in. And gosh, wouldn't it be great to meet people face to face as well? And then just to let you know, no detail at the moment because we're waiting for that approval process, which always has to happen in a university. There may well be a whole range of School of Management scholarships for 2025-26, and there's just gone on to the next slide, which shows some UCL ones, but also it refers to for September 2025, where we're looking very closely for all of our programs, but including this program, to see if we can get scholarships to try and reduce the fee. And I think, Lindsay, is that taking us towards the, yes, we got the funding pages, and we're making these slides available, Paulina, I think, to colleagues, so you can look at that as well. And does that then take us through, Lindsay, to staying in touch, email address? Judith said that I mentioned OMSAF. the online masters in strategic accounting and finance, Judith will be happy to receive your email queries at mgmt-saf. Strategic Accounting and Finance at ucl.ac.uk, but you'll get a copy of this as well. And I think, Lindsay, does that take us through to questions and answers? I know I went through it quite quickly, but I wanted to cover all the things which I think you might be querying. So with the colleagues we've got online, Paulina, have we had any messages coming into any questions coming into the chat?
We've had loads. Thank you for the presentation. It was very detailed. You actually covered quite a few things that I was going to ask from the chat. And also thank you everyone who has asked the question in the Q&A function. I was busy the entire presentation just answering questions, so that's always a good sign. I've included a few links already into the chat box, as well as the Strategic Accounting and Finance Program Team email address, where you can talk about anything related to the program, any queries. I'll also include the Student Recruitment Marketing Team email if you want to ask anything about the school, UCL, anything student recruitment based, as well as my email address if you want to contact me directly. And as we're asking the questions or answering the questions, I'll also put in a few links such as English language requirements, admissions inquiries for postgraduate scholarships and School of Management scholarships, as well as UCL. So, okay, enough rambling from me. I'm just going to quickly dive into the questions. If anyone would like to put their camera on and ask the question directly now to the program team, please use this opportunity and we'll prioritize those questions first. If not, I'll just read through the list of questions that I have that I've collected throughout the session.
Oh, there, who's that? Who's just come in? Is that
Kenza?
Kenza, hello Kenza, how are you? Welcome Kenza. Let me just ask a question. I mentioned about geographical dispersion. Whereabouts are you based today, Kenza?
So right now I'm in Canada, but I'm Moroccan. I'm from Morocco, but I'm studying in Canada.
Oh, whereabouts in Canada, as a matter of interest?
Ottawa.
Ottawa. Oh wow, yeah. I've been to Toronto many times, never got and Montreal, but never got across to Ottawa. But actually, interestingly, one of our colleagues, who's an associate of ours, who's lined up to be one of the people working on the online seminars, Mitch is actually based in Ottawa, isn't he? Yeah, one of our colleagues is actually a professor who's based in Ottawa. So yeah, over to you then, Kenza, with a question.
Okay, so my question would, first of all, thank you for your presentation. It was really interesting. My question would be, let's say you're a recent graduate of this master's program and you're applying for jobs, and the recruiter asks you, what did this master add to your background, and what tools and assets did it give you for your work and career? What would you specifically highlight?
I think the first thing that I would start with, but of course it could be tempered by your own interpretations and your experience, of course. But if you think right the way back to the start of this presentation, where it said why, I think we mentioned, what did we mention? The financial expertise, we mentioned critical thinking. What was the other thing, Lindsay? Analytical thinking. So it's developed your ability in the thinking stakes to be able to, what are the other words I used, to evaluate, synthesize, but also gaining that financial expertise. So it isn't just saying, oh, I understand a bit about accounting and finance. You're thinking, you're developing skills in being able to apply accounting and finance, but B, because it's called strategic accounting and finance, it's not just that narrow view of accounting and finance. It's actually saying, hey, this is connected to taking an organization forward. And any organization, if you did some finance numbers, some accounting numbers, that's great. You do all the numbers, you do the spreadsheet, but what you then have to do is surround those numbers with, what shall I call it, the messiness of the world. It's a crazy world out there. How do we take that information and make sense of it in the context of, where are we going? What are we going to do? And if we can improve our decision making, we still might not, every decision is actually a guess, but if we can make better guesses, and say you're a commercial business and all your competitors aren't making the guesses which are quite as good as yours, already you're getting a competitive advantage. So does that go some way towards giving you some insights, Kenzie? Yeah. As a matter of interest, whereabouts in Morocco?
Rabat.
From Rabat, yeah, okay, yeah. And parlez-vous français?
Oui, bien
Oui,
sûr.
oui, yeah. And any other questions from anybody on screen today? Paulina, do we know?
Anyone would like to speak up? Now is your chance.
Or I could be very provocative and so on. Manuel, I think I saw your name was the first name that appeared. I don't know if you're there, Manuel. I wonder whereabouts are you? Oh, there you are, Manuel. How are you? Good to see you.
Hello.
Whereabouts are you based today?
I'm currently in Durham.
In Durham.
Just
Well,
yeah,
that
in the business
is-
school right now.
yeah,
It's
so-
quite quiet.
yeah, I know
Right.
Durham Business School. And Lindsay, I don't know if we should mention this. Are you an external examiner at any particular business school?
Yeah, I am. I'm starting this year as the external examiner.
So I don't know if you, the good news is that
Nice.
you don't see the names, you only see the student numbers. So you don't know if you'll be checking to see how Manuel is getting on. But so
Right.
have you any particular questions, Manuel?
Just quick fact.
Yeah, I believe
Right.
I put one in the chat.
Durham.
So I was like, obviously I found it very interesting what you were saying, and you focused a lot on research at UCL. So would you say that that's kind of the angle, the competitive edge that UCL has, is how prestigious they are with their research? I'm asking this for like the personal statement angle. Like, would this be a good way of going?
Well, I already mentioned that I'm an accountant, and one of the and my colleagues here in the room will laugh as I say this because I say it so many times. If you ask any accountant a question, invariably the answer you get is the answer is yes and the answer is no, because it all depends the angle you're looking at things from. So yeah, I think that would be tempered by where you see yourself going. Certainly, there will be some research which you'll be doing, not necessarily that traditional academic research. And this is much more about business research, but certainly in other online programs that we've been associated with. I think, Lindsay, you were talking to somebody recently with another one that we do with University of London, who's gone on to complete a PhD.
Yep.
In that. So they were able to use a not dissimilar program in accounting to actually underpin an application for a PhD, and then they went on and did that PhD. But we got very many people who take the research side of things in a much more applied, practical way, just to be able to make sense of life. So I think it depends what you want to get out of it. So we're happy to take personal statements, which tell your story. And if we can hear your story, we find out about you. And I have to say, if you were to do either of those, as long as you put it together properly, don't get ChatGPT to do it. If you put it together properly, so we can hear your voice coming through, that would be great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Just quick fact, I did my undergrad in Durham in economics, so I'm a huge fan. I love Durham.
Yeah,
Oh,
Durham,
nice. Did you see the new business school when you were here? Or?
No, so I think that was done when I had gone already, but I was part of the business school as well, so we had to walk all the way to business school back when we had to actually upload our
Yeah, that was very far. Yeah.
also handed physical copies.
Yeah, I've been to the new business school. It's really good. And in fact, when was it? Was it last year, or the year before? I was on the visiting panel for the reaccreditation of Durham Business School's MBA, and yeah,
That's nice.
Good stuff. I mean, you're gonna, Paulina and Manuel, I'm going to say this am I saying it with a cheeky grin on my face? Of course, Durham is a really good business school. Almost as good as UCL School of Management. You'd expect me to say that, wouldn't you? Yeah. And I think so. Other colleagues may have left, have they, Paulina? I've managed to throw them by talking too much.
I think we've just got Manuel and Kenza, but I still have some questions that were asked that I'm happy to kind of throw out because we've still got a bit of time. If you guys are happy for me to do that. Yeah. So we had questions around generally kind of the structure of the program. So what time would the weekly webinars, kind of seminars be? Would they be on the same time each week? What would they involve? What size of the classrooms?
Good questions. I can give you an answer to that. So one of the things that will in direct answer to one of the questions, whatever time the seminars are set for, say one is set on a Wednesday, let me pick a number at random, at 7 p.m. 1900 hours in the evening, say it was set at that particular seminar, let's say it was for applied managerial finance, which is one of the modules I'm going to be involved in, it would be at 1900 hours on a Wednesday. Another one might be on a Thursday or on a Monday, but they would be consistently on that same day each week during each of the 10 weeks. One of the things that we will be seeking to do is, once we know about the total population and the geographical dispersion, we fully recognize that it may well be, let's take an exaggerated example for the purpose of the recording that people may be listening to after the event, that you could have, let's imagine, to take a number of 20. Let's say you had 20 groups, 20 students in an applied managerial finance seminar, and 20 is our maximum, by the way, that we would have. But let's say that 10 of them, just for argument's sake, were based in Costa Rica, which of course is to the west of the UK. And let's say that 5 of them were based in Singapore and 5 were based in Hong Kong. Now, trying to get one seminar time is going to be particularly challenging. So what we would do in the early days, as numbers start to grow and the program gains traction and momentum, we would be more than happy to put on seminars twice, so that there could be something which suits the time location of the people I said who are pretended are living in Costa Rica, and others who are living in Singapore and Hong Kong. If we go further down the path, X number of years, programs take time to grow in reputation and popularity and attract even more students. Ultimately, let's pick a number. I don't know. Let's pick 80 students. Say we had 80 students, then 4 groups of 20 on any module. We would certainly be trying to get seminar times, whether it's 1 o'clock in the day UK time, 7 o'clock in the evening UK time, to try and fit those geographical time zones that colleagues are in.
Great, thank you. There's some other really kind of straightforward questions. So how will marking and feedback be given? How will the group coursework be structured? Are there any possibilities to take optional modules from other departments? And how does the strategic financial project, what does it involve? How much support will we receive? What's the structure, time commitment?
Okay, good. All good questions. I think there were 4 questions there. I'll let Lindsay answer the 4th question, as it's about the strategic financial project. The first one, Paulina, remind me, sorry, that was?
Marking and feedback.
Yeah, marking and feedback. So what will happen will be, as it's online, we don't stick stuff in the post. So what happens is, any marking, we tend to use rubrics, and we will put back the marking to you at the rubrics, but we also give you feedback about what we thought about your coursework or your project or your video presentation, whatever it is, and that comes through the VLE, the virtual learning environment. And the second question, Paulina, was?
How will group coursework be structured?
Well, it can be structured in a number of ways depending upon the module. So group coursework, I'll give you one example for myself. On a group coursework bit that I would have in applied managerial finance, my group coursework will comprise of 2 students in a group who will be helping each other. And the structure of it will be that, let's say you had 4 weeks to do the group coursework. Then each week I would be saying, look, I need you to log on. Let's pick a day, Friday. Every Friday, I need you to let us know what you've been doing, how you've been progressing, so that we can help you if you start to fall behind. There may be other group courseworks which are structured in a slightly different way. Certainly, if you look at the nature of any individual module, it may differ. It may even apply to the individual coursework as well. For example, I mentioned behavioral finance, the psychology of decision making, and influence, persuasion, and negotiations. Now, I'm an accountant, so I can say all that touchy-feely stuff. You would expect in those more qualitative ones to perhaps have a different approach to the structure of the group work, the composition of groups. Whereas our colleague Michael, who'll be doing the analytics and financial decision making, which has got a few more numbers in, but there's also qualitative stuff, that might have a different composition. So I think we need to look at the nature of each particular module.
Yep, sounds good. And I think there's a pretty straightforward answer to this question. And while I'm on straightforward answers, I'll ask another one as soon as you finish this one, and then I'll let Lindsay answer the strategic financial project one. So are there any possibilities to take optional modules from other departments?
No, at this stage, there are no opportunities. Every module is compulsory. One of the challenges that I think not only ourselves, but other universities have learned from is that if you start a brand new program with having options, one of the challenges that you always face is, are you going to get 10 students? Are you going to get 50 students? Are you going to get 100 students? Are you going to get 1,000 students? And I think by going for options straight away, I mean, in the first year of any program, you're likely to have fewer numbers than maybe you're going to have 10 years later, if I exaggerate. So if you have options, you then start to dilute the composition of the seminars and the groups that you have. So at this stage, there are no options. Maybe in the future, there will be.
Great. And the other simple answer question is, what academic background are you looking for? Do you accept BAs?
When you say a Bachelor of Arts?
Bachelor of Arts, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Lindsay, do you want to make a comment on that?
Yeah, we'll take anyone from any background. I think one of the really good things about this program is that you can come from any discipline. And if you think about it, even though we're looking at strategic accounting and finance, you can use your background discipline, knowledge base to actually progress your career in that field later if you choose to, but have that added extra advantage of understanding the strategic accounting and finance dimension to complement things. So any discipline, we're really used to having students from languages, a Bachelor of Arts in various different social sciences, history. So anyone who fancies the OMSAF program, we will welcome you with open arms, and we'll make sure that your progression is manageable and that you're supported along the way.
Yeah, and just before Lindsay answers the question about the strategic financial project, one of the things that we were talking about very recently, only last week, we were reflecting back because we'd been talking to some past students from some time ago. One of the things we have as an in-person program here in Canary Wharf is an MSc in management, and in the corporate pathway, they do two accounting and finance modules. They don't specialize as such. Excuse me. But I remember we had one student colleague who joined us who was terrified, absolutely terrified of accounting and finance because they'd never done anything. And I remember her saying, well, I'm languages. My undergraduate degree is languages. What am I going to do? So we helped her. And what's really interesting is she got in contact with us a couple of years ago. I think she joined in 2013. So it's now 12 years later, but 2 years ago, so 10 years later, we caught up. And guess what? She's become a financial controller in an organization. So she came in terrified. Oh, I'm great at languages. I'm going to die a death here. But she didn't. And now she's a financial controller and studied professional accountancy exams. It works. Lindsay.
Oh, really quickly about the strategic financial project. So we mentioned that it's two halves. So you've got the research methodology grounding, and then you're using those techniques to actually apply within your project. So you can kind of liken it to a dissertation, but the word count is a lot less. I think it's up to 7,000 words, but it's designed to be much more condensed because it's a capstone piece. So if you think about a consultancy project or a report from thinking about a business change or a strategic change, those don't really go on for, let's say, 15, 20,000 words. It's much more succinct. To be able to deliver something like that, it's actually very practical and very much what the workplace is expecting from you anyway. Your choice is totally up to you. You can be as creative, as thinking out the box as you like, as long as you frame it within the assessment criteria. But it is very open so that you have a sense of real ownership and even passion and general interest in the thing that you're about to deliver and produce as your final piece. So, the project itself is a really tangible piece of output that, you should be proud of, and the culmination of your studies on the program.
And it might just be worth for clarification adding that the mentor that you get, if it was an academic dissertation, we'd call it a supervisor, but a mentor. What we actually do, and quite deliberately so, is we limit the number of official contact hours that you have. Typically, we're just finalizing some stuff, but it will be 3 or 4 hours. So typically you'd have 3 or 4 meetings. And the reason we limit it is, that's mentor will act as your sounding board. That strategic financial project, much like an academic dissertation would be, is an independent piece of work. And I think sometimes in the past on other programs I'm familiar with, where they've had lots and lots of mentoring and supervision, then what happens is it doesn't become the student's piece of work. It's oh, well, my supervisor told me to say this. So we're quite harsh with that as well, but it works. We know it works, that independent piece of work.
Yep. I know that we're running a little bit over time and that you guys have a lot to do today, but I have 3 more questions to ask. Are we okay to?
Absolutely. We're actually on an interview panel today, Lindsay and I, and the next one isn't until 1:30, so it's 1 o'clock now, so we're okay.
Right.
We could talk forever, Polina.
Great. So on the back of the support that a student not from a financial background would get, are there any pre-sessional courses, or how does that support kind of look in practice?
Shall I answer that, Lindsay? Sure. Yeah, no pre-sessional sessions. We can put out indicative sort of pre-reading if people want it, but we actually assume zero knowledge. I'd like to think that all of us are well versed, well experienced in meeting people, a whole range of people. Some people have got experience, some people. I go back to that person I mentioned on the MSc management. I don't know nothing. I'm going to die. And we know how to approach things from a zero knowledge level if necessary. We do also know how to ramp you up quite quickly. And I think we've all got experience of doing that on this program team. And I think that's one of the really attractive features of the program team. We have hugely experienced people, hugely experienced lecturers, educators. And again, something I said, I'm sorry, Lindsay, to embarrass you, but people have won awards, not just Lindsay, but other colleagues have won teaching awards.
Alan, I think you've won an award, haven't you?
Yeah, no, I bribed the judges. I bribed the judges, yeah.
But actually on the point of the team that we are very much about student-centric support. So, if you are struggling, or if you feel that you might need just a little bit extra, that open communication with us as a program team, the module leader for the module that you might be taking that you're struggling with, just ask. I think having that open dialogue and making sure that you're feeling safe enough to communicate with us, we are so happy to try and help in any way that we can. So, I would say don't be shy and don't feel embarrassed. If the prerequisite knowledge that, you may think you need, and you want some extra help, just ask, and we're very happy to help.
And on an ongoing basis, we'll have weekly office hours as well. So
amazing. Okay, next question is, and I think we touched on this a little bit, but on the basis of if they have no work experience or if they've gone straight from their undergrad, how would they kind of phrase their personal statement to compete with someone who may have had a lot of work experience?
Good question.
Another kind of question that kind of jumps on to this is, should the personal statement focus more on long-term vision or immediate goals after graduation? How specific should they be?
Again, it's back to that variation on the answer is yes and the answer is no. If it's somebody who's got no work experience, then presumably a personal statement would be saying, I want to gain enough knowledge and insight and understanding of accounting and finance and how it links to the rest of an organizational world, even though I don't know much about organizational worlds, to enable me to take those first steps on a career. I mean, that's what I would expect to see in a personal statement. And somebody who is already in employment, I think we'd be happy to see either and or somebody just saying, first of all, I want it for professional development. This is going to help me in my career progression. Somebody else might say, well, actually, I'm doing okay in my career. I just like challenging myself, broadening my personal horizons. And so they could make a personal statement. There will be some people who say, you know what? I love to challenge myself personally, but also want to get the professional development as well. So I think we're happy to take something and go back to what I said earlier when we were talking to Manuel, that tells your story, something which tells your story. and it can really be any story which you think is appropriate for you. We just want to know that you've thought about it. Rather than, you know, I'll write something down, you know, they want to hear me say this. I think sometimes we can see through where somebody just makes it up. Something which comes from the heart, a little bit of passion about, yeah, I want to develop myself, develop my career, develop personally.
Great. And final question to end the session is, you mentioned stuff about careers provisions. Do the students on this program have exactly the same careers services, so the online sessions, one-to-ones, as the kind of in-person postgraduate students, and how will that look?
Absolutely. And in developing this program, Kate, who's the head of our careers team, we had long discussions about how we might make this happen in an online context, and they've already got experience of an online context. So the answer is yes.
Great. So yeah, that's everything. Thank you guys so much for running this session. I think it went really well. Everyone was super engaged, and we ran over time, which is always a good indicator. It was a great session.
That's great. And Paulina, thank you for all your help in arranging this. And Kenzo, you're our last one who's remaining. So I think, is this where we say a bientôt?
Oui, exactement. À bientôt.
Of course, I can't say anything else, you know, but I can say PSG, Paris Saint-Germain. Well, who's the football team in Morocco, in Rabat? Is it Rabat FC? What's the football team in Rabat? Soccer team.
In Rabat, it's but you know what? I don't even know what is the football.
Oh, you're not going to get on the program until you know who's in the
And then we'll double check.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Okay. And again, Paulina, thank you for all your help.
Yep, of course.
Okay.
Thank you so much. And yeah,
Bye then.
end the recording now. Thank you.